Wandering into a sweet shop, visitors are greeted by a symphony of delightful aromas and a kaleidoscope of colours, as if stepping into a world where happiness takes the form of sugar and spice. The shelves are adorned with an array of sweets and chocolates, each a testament to the artistry and passion of the confectioners who crafted them. From traditional favourites to innovative creations, there's something to tantalise every taste bud and evoke nostalgic memories or create new ones. This was the world of Marjorie Wren, who was in the twilight years of her life and running her own sweet shop at No. 2 Church Road in Ramsgate in East Kent, England. Marjorie was born on the 5th of November 1850 in Charlotte Street in the coastal town of Broadstairs to William and Elizabeth Ann Wren. She and her numerous siblings were rumoured to have been a descendant of Sir Christopher Wren, an acclaimed Baroque-style architect, mathematician, physicist and astronomer, known for being the mastermind behind London's St Paul's Cathedral. Throughout Marjorie's life, she worked as a domestic servant and maidservant in both Islington and Clerkenwell in London. In the 1890s, a family member passed away, and her sweet shop was given to Marjorie and her sister Mary Jane. According to an article in the Thanet News, the 1901 census confirmed that Mary Jane was the proprietor of the sweet shop, and her occupation was listed as confectioner. Marjorie was also listed on the census in the sweet shop, and her occupation was stated as cook. On the 31st of January 1927, Mary Jane died, leaving the shop entirely in Marjorie's hands. Marjorie also received a fairly substantial amount of money from Mary Jane in her will. Despite this, Marjorie continued to live a humble life. Furthermore, Marjorie was very much liked by her neighbours and was also a quiet and reserved character. It was the 20th of September 1930. Being a Saturday, it was a busy day for 82-year-old Marjorie, who revelled in providing both sweet and savoury delights for her customers, with the shop being both a sweet shop and general store or tuck shop. In the morning, her cousin, whose son, a policeman, made a daily habit of visiting her due to her old age, stopped by. Then at 1 p.m, her niece's husband, a 69-year-old resident of Heathfield Avenue in Dover, Albert Williams, came to visit to express his dissatisfaction regarding his nephew's decision to seek accommodation elsewhere. Later, Marjorie Wren was observed walking with him to the street corner, where they bid farewell around 2:20 p.m. Shortly after, pupils from the nearby school stopped by the store to purchase sweets during their lunch break, and approximately half an hour later, a little after 3 p.m, coal of a half hundredweight was delivered to the premises by Reuben Beer. Between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m, a woman wearing a red hat was witnessed by the shop. However, her identity was a mystery. Just after 6 p.m, 11-year-old St George's school pupil Ellen Marvel arrived at the sweet shop, having been sent on an errand by her mother to purchase blancmange powder. Ellen was taken aback to find the shop door locked, as it was well known that Marjorie kept the shop open for long hours. She knocked vigorously to get Marjorie's attention. After a considerable wait, Marjorie finally answered the door. Ellen was alarmed to see her looking dishevelled and bleeding profusely from the head. When Ellen returned home, she told her father about Marjorie's condition, and he visited the shop to check on her. Upon his arrival at No. 2 Church Road just a few minutes later, he discovered Marjorie unconscious, with notable injuries to the left side of her head. He told both of his daughters, who had accompanied him to the shop, to get help from a doctor and the police. Dr. Richard James Archibald tended to Marjorie at the scene alongside Mr. Marvel. Marjorie recounted to Mr. Marvel that she had taken a hard fall, resulting in a head injury. However, when Dr. Richard Archibald, a seasoned practitioner from Ramsgate who had long tended to the medical needs of both Marjorie and her late sister Mary Jane, arrived at the shop, it became evident that Marjorie's injuries were not consistent with a simple fall. Rather, they appeared to be caused by multiple lacerations from a blunt object. Notably, a pair of blood-stained fire tongs found on the floor seemed to be the likely candidate for the blunt instrument involved. Marjorie then changed her story, saying that a man had attacked her with the tongs, but had unfortunately escaped. Marjorie was taken to Ramsgate Hospital, where she recounted the attack numerous times. Each time, however, the tale was told differently. Those who tried to aid her were confused by her responses, as she changed several details each time, such as the number of people who attacked her, how she was attacked, and also the names of people who supposedly carried out the attack. Chief Inspector Walter Hambrook was assigned to lead the investigation in Ramsgate. Upon his arrival on September 24th, Marjorie had slipped into a coma, rendering her unable to be questioned directly. Hambrook found himself puzzled by the conflicting statements made by the dying woman as she accused several upstanding elderly individuals of assaulting her. She refused to make a statement to the police, and furthermore, a vicar who visited her in the hospital also failed in his quest to get Marjorie to name her attacker. In what was described by numerous media outlets as delirium, Marjorie repeated the phrases, quote, "Is the little black bag safe?" and, quote, "He tried to borrow £10. She also muttered names repeatedly, saying, for example, quote, "Hope did it. Hope was the one who did it." And Hambrook later disclosed that Marjorie said, quote, "I do not wish to make a statement. I've seen my doctor and the vicar. I've had communion. I know I'm going home, but I do not wish him to suffer. He must bear his sins. There has been a misunderstanding." Marjorie Wren survived for 5 days after she was attacked. However, she sadly succumbed to her wounds on the 25th of September 1930. The death of Marjorie subsequently turned the case into a murder investigation. The subject of money and wealth was a topic which intrigued many in regards to this case. There was gossip and rumours circulating that money had been stashed around the shop, leading many to believe that robbery was the motive. The Glasgow Herald reported that both Marjorie and her sister, Mary Jane, were generously paid for adopting the child of a female friend, and furthermore, Marjorie had allegedly sold property in London. The Wren sisters also worked in the residence of an admiral when working in London in their youth, and it was thought that perhaps the admiral had given them a significant amount of money. Mary Jane, also known as Jenny, was said to have had in her possession a photograph of the admiral, which indicated a very close relationship. The police documentation regarding the murder case points to 20-year-old Charles Ernest Hope of 88 Church Road as their primary suspect. Charles had previously served as a private in the Royal Corps of Signals, but was discharged due to larceny. After a short time in Borstal, his trouble with the law continued when he was arrested in London on August 27, 1930, for stealing jewellery worth £10 from a train's luggage compartment. On September 18th and 19th, he lodged at the Salvation Army Hostel on Euston Road before travelling from London Victoria Station to Ramsgate railway station the next day, arriving at 4 p.m. and reaching his parents' house on Church Road by 4:20 p.m. Charles asserted that bloodstains on his clothing and kit bag resulted from injuries sustained during the train robbery, a claim disputed by the arresting police inspector. Furthermore, he provided false information about his whereabouts on September 20th, falsely stating he disembarked at Dumpton Park railway station. Despite these discrepancies and the witness report that Marjorie had repeatedly said, quote, Hope did it, he was never formally identified as a suspect or charged with the murder. It was also reported that the Hope Marjorie had been referring to was an elderly acquaintance. Later in life, Charles married Mary Rosamond, renouncing his life to petty crime to pursue a career as a foreman carpenter. The full extent of Marjorie's injuries was presented at the murder inquest, which began on the 26th of September and concluded on the 24th of October. The pathologist reported that there was bruising in the lower jaw, which rose up to the left eye socket, measuring at approximately 5 inches in length. There were also notable lacerations near her left eye. Further bruises and lacerations were located by the left ear, the whites of both eyes, the left temple, and the left edge of her tongue, with a small, deep puncture wound on her forehead and other wounds on her neck. Her third left rib was fractured, and further examinations found that Marjorie had been suffering with both heart and lung disease. The tongs that were thought to have been the murder weapon was examined and fibres plus human hair were found on it. The hair resembled Marjorie's, and the pathologist, Sir Bernard Spilsbury, believed it to be hers. However, since DNA testing wasn't available at the time, it was never confirmed. Sir Bernard stated that her death was not caused by a fall, even if she had fallen more than once. From the findings of his examination, he stated that a great force was not needed to inflict the injuries upon Marjorie Wren, and the wounds on her neck strongly suggested strangulation by hand. There was also fluid in her brain, which suggested some form of concussion. He believed that she was attacked, fell unconscious, then awoke briefly, only to fall down and regain unconsciousness. Police retrieved banknotes which were believed to have been blood-stained. The Chief Constable of Ramsgate Police stated their interest in locating individuals who may have either sold or bought any of Marjorie Wren's property, and furthermore, they appealed to the public to trace down any people who had invested in Marjorie's property. Clothes were retrieved by the coast and were being examined. However, it is unknown whether these clothes belonged to Marjorie. Police interviewed hundreds of locals. However, no significant results were yielded. 6 names Marjorie had muttered before her death were persons of interest in the case. However, it was thought that she was saying these names to protect the identity of her real attacker for reasons unknown. Scotland Yard were able to clear 3 of them, who had solid alibis. However, the other 3 remained potential suspects. The woman in the red hat, seen prior to the murder, has never been identified, despite police's appeal to the public for help in identifying the individual. Mr. Marvel, whose daughter Ellen found Marjorie dazed in her shop that day, said that Marjorie told him when he had arrived at the scene, quote, "He caught me by the throat and set about me with the tongs." Mr. Marvel also stated that Marjorie described the assailant as a, quote, "big man with a red face, had a moustache and staring eyes." Ellen Marvel described that Marjorie was giddy when she entered the shop and helped her with getting the blancmange powder. Ellen then paid and left, after which she alerted her father. Chillingly, throughout Ellen and Marjorie's entire interaction, Marjorie had blood streaming down both sides of her face. When Dr. Archibald arrived after Mr. Marvel, the first thing Marjorie said to him was, quote, I'm suffocating. Initially, Dr. Archibald believed she had fallen down the stairs, as there were clear burst blood vessels by her left cheekbone. Marjorie was panicked and vomiting, and despite Dr. Archibald being present, the room was lit only by a single candle, making it extremely difficult for him to examine her. PC Arthur of Ramsgate Police said that Marjorie told him that she had fallen over the fire poker. She had said that there had been several people in the room when she was attacked, once again contradicting her earlier statements. The inquiry concluded with the verdict of murder by person or persons unknown. Marjorie Wren was laid to rest on the 30th of September 1930 and was buried beside her sister Mary Jane at Ramsgate Cemetery. Nearly a century has passed since Marjorie's tragic murder, yet the identity of her killer remains a haunting enigma, likely destined to remain so indefinitely. Her loved ones and friends have endured the weight of this unresolved loss, forced to carry on without the solace of closure or the satisfaction of justice served.